Boy, this is great. How many are here for the first time? Woo! Look around, isn't this amazing? Absolutely amazing. Is my tie straight? All right, good. Did you guys have a great time last night at the party? Did you get what we were doing? I mean, there's a transition from the workroom floor to a week-long convention. And what's more appropriate than a carnival atmosphere? It worked. Go back, we'll do mail on a stick, you know? But thank you very much, brothers and sisters and fellow delegates. And thank you, Jane, for that wonderful introduction. I'm so happy to be here today. Welcome to Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes. We're a little short, though. There's 9,100 delegates registered for this convention. If we just had another 900 delegates, we'd have one for each lake. Boy, was that funny. Now, Minneapolis has a special place in American history. A very important strike occurred in this city in the summer of 1934. No, I was not there. That's when a truckers' strike turned into a months-long general strike in this city that created mass support for unionization and helped pave the way for the Wagner Act in 1935. Minneapolis also has a proud place in the history of civil rights. When he was this city's mayor in 1948, Hubert Humphrey took on the segregationists that dominated his party at the Democratic National Convention and successfully campaigned for the first ever civil rights plank in the party's platform. He famously said from the floor of the convention, "My friends, to those who say that we are rushing this issue of civil rights, I say to them, we are 172 years too late." To those who say this civil rights program is an infringement on states' rights, I say this: the time has arrived in America for the Democratic Party to get out of the shadow of states' rights and walk forthrightly into the bright sunshine of human rights. So we could not have picked a better place for our 68th biennial convention. We are in a great American city with a great labor culture. It's truly inspiring to be here at this most important time of our union's history. Fasten your seatbelts, brothers and sisters. This convention is going to make history, and we're going to face extreme turbulence as we do so. First, our employer, the United States Postal Service, is in great trouble. Financially, in a classic sense, it's insolvent. It can't pay a legally mandated, although ridiculously absurd, $5.6 billion bill that's due on August 1st. Even worse, it has no strategy, zero. It has no business plan, zero, to deal with the structural challenge of electronic delivery of messages. I don't have to tell you what's happened to volume. You see it in your stations every day. Second, the nation is in the grips of the most vicious anti-union public attitude, and specifically anti-public employee union attitude since 1947, when the Taft-Hartley Act was passed. I wasn't here for that either. Anti-unionism, anti-public sector bias, Tea Party anti-intellectualism, a toxic combination. Third, the Congress of the United States is deadlocked and grossly dysfunctional. That is true with regard to the great public issues of the day but especially regarding postal issues. Fourth, the White House is like a deer frozen in the headlights on postal issues. Politically, that's a huge embarrassment. But President Obama is our president. We endorsed him in 2008. We worked our backsides off for him. We spent major dollars to help get him elected. But he has not been of any great help on our critical issues, and we have to own up to that. And to make the cheese more binding, where the hell did that phrase come from? We will be dealing with this November's election this week. Fifth, top management of the Postal Service and above them, the so-called governing board, are intellectually bankrupt. No vision, no strategy, no business plan. They have one answer and one answer only. Cut service, cut Saturday delivery, close facilities, cut the workforce, reduce wages, reduce benefits, contract out, shrink, 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 chase the falling knife. Never mind that the inevitable consequence of those actions will be literally to kill the Postal Service, to cut and degrade service, to degrade the brand, to wreck our unique last-mile delivery franchise. Incredibly, the Postmaster General has joined House Postal Committee Chairman Iss's, I said Chairman Iss's, calm down. Chairman Iss's program to dismantle the Postal Service. The Postal Board of Governors is not governing. We have more than a crisis of leadership. We have a total abdication of leadership. They are hopeless. Thirsty. Thank you. But to criticize is easy. The real question is whether we have a solution. So let me set the table. That's what this convention is going to decide. We haven't had our heads in the sand. 10 months ago, NALC retained Ron Bloom, the auto czar that was appointed by President Obama to save and restructure the entire auto industry. Before that, Ron had been special assistant to the president of the Steelworkers Union and had restructured and saved the country's steel industry. And then NALC retained Lazard, the world-class investment bank, to perform a classic investment banker due diligence of the Postal Service, to tell us candidly if there was still a business there in a commercial sense, and to analyze the Postal Service's strategy, their business plan, their leadership. As of last month, Ron has joined Lazard in a leadership position. Tomorrow, he will address you directly. Please listen to him carefully. The bottom line of Ron's work and Lazard's and our own knowledge and experience is that there is a viable postal service that is possible in the future, but not with business as usual. Business as usual will mean no business at all, seriously. Not without new leadership, not without a focused strategy, not without a growth business plan, an end to congressional micromanagement, pricing and regulatory reform, and sacrifices and willingness to change on the part of all postal constituencies, including us, but not just all on us. But that's just scratching the surface. The devil is in the details, and that's where we're going this week, starting right now. We will do our usual business. We will get reports. We will debate resolutions and constitutional amendments. We will give awards. We will report on our interest arbitration. Our Constitution tells us what to do, and we will do with it, we'll do it with our usual dedication and respect for each other and, of course, all of our diverse views. This is a big country. This is a big union that more than any other union reflects our nation's diversity. We are democracy with a giant D. But make no mistake, our primary task this week will be to determine the future of the Postal Service. And that's bold, some might think. Bold, arrogant talk. But it's true. The future of the service is too monumental a task to leave to the hopeless management that's running this agency. And it's too important to leave to this deadlocked Congress or the disengaged White House. If we, the National Association of Letter Carriers, do not seize the moment, show the way, and demonstrate that the service can be saved and how, the sad fact is that no one else will do it, period. Now, for most of our history, we've known exactly what kind of postal service that we support and that we believe in. We have always supported a publicly owned postal service financed by a regulated monopoly that ensures affordable, universal service, period. There was no doubt, no equivocation, government ownership was a given. The private express statutes, a given. Universal service, a given. After 1970, collective bargaining rights, a given. We believed in all of these givens because they worked for all of us. As workers, we achieved a middle-class standard of living. As Americans and as users of the mail, we secured high-quality service at the most affordable postage rates in the world. Okay. And as taxpayers, we got the best deal possible. It didn't cost us anything, not a dime. Today, all those givens must be reconsidered given the technological changes in our industry. Our core function, the delivery of letter mail, is fading away, and we need to replace it with new business and new services. Direct mail will continue to play a vital role in the United States advertising market because it remains the most effective way for companies to target customers and for nonprofits or politicians to target their supporters. Response rates per dollar spent on physical mail still far surpass response rates for electronic messages. But as first-class mail, our bread and butter is diverted to electronic alternatives through online invoicing systems and online bill payment, we must become a major player in the parcel and package industry and develop new uses of our retail and delivery networks that can serve the commercial and civic needs of our country. Now, for this transformation to take place, the Postal Service can no longer afford mediocre management. It needs a leadership with vision. It needs a leadership with talent. It needs a leadership that wants to grow and wants to succeed. Let me be plain. We don't have that right now. And if we don't get it, we are doomed to shrink and to die. I can't put it any more honestly. The truth hurts, but it's still the truth. And it is this truth which must inform all the debates that we have this week. We must be prepared to question everything. The structure and the nature of the Postal Service, the structure and the philosophy of our union, our role in American life, our role in the American economy, everything. I'm pretty sure that most of it are not prepared to support privatization or deregulation of the Postal Service this week in Minneapolis. I'm certainly not ready to do that. It would be disastrous without lots of other changes. But we would be foolish to not seriously question the status quo that we find ourselves in right now. Knowing what we know about how our political system works, or doesn't work, we must face the fact that if we do nothing, we face a future of decline. If we let nature take its course, we won't be fighting 5-day delivery. We'll be fighting 3-day delivery, or worse. And we won't be fighting for a better contract. We'll be fighting to keep any kind of contract. So change is coming, brothers and sisters. The only thing we need to decide is, will we be the agents of that change or the victims of it? I'm here to say we must be the agents, not the victims. NALC can save the United States Postal Service. I have no doubt about that. But the Postal Service we save is not going to be the one that we have proudly worked for in the past. We must join together to reinvent the Postal Service for the 21st century in a way that secures satisfying careers for our members, that will preserve our middle-class standard of living. We have to commit ourselves to delivering for a changing world. And that's been NALC's prime objective over the past 2 years. And that will be the overriding theme of this 68th Biennial Convention. Our task will be to debate and reach consensus on the kind of postal service we want to pursue for the future, and find a way to get around the obstacles that are before us to make that happen. Are you with me on this? No, I meant everybody. Are you with me on this? I mean everybody, are you with me? All right, calm down. I just wanted to know. So let's talk about a new postal service. The good news is that our Lazard consultants concluded that the Postal Service has a lot of potential to exploit its last mile strength to capture a much greater share of the booming package delivery market, okay? And when I say booming, I mean booming. In the first 8 months of this year, the Postal Service's shipping volume is up by more than 50%, and shipping revenues are up by 30%, despite a weak economic recovery. That's good news. We're gaining market share by taking on the last mile delivery function for UPS and for FedEx. In fact, during the first quarter of this year, we delivered 30% of all parcels handled by FedEx's ground division. We are effectively unionizing FedEx's delivery work. We're also delivering millions of packages every day for UPS. And the growth in the overall e-commerce market shows no sign of slowing down. Right now, just 5% of retail sales are concluded through e-commerce, only 5%, growing 17% last year, reaching an astounding $200 billion in 2011, and that's only 5%. The sky is the limit on growth in the sale of goods purchased online, and the delivery charges on those sales will be enormous. Sales on Amazon.com have grown 30% annually over the past 10 years. Growth so fast that Amazon could become the next Walmart. I said Walmart. Oh. eBay now has 100 million registered users. What workforce is better positioned than we are to deliver the exploding volume of packages in residential neighborhoods across the country? There isn't one. We should also be the delivery service of choice to help small and medium-sized businesses compete against e-commerce giants like Amazon. The bad news, which is no news at all, is that our consultants also concluded that the Postal Service's current business strategy, which Lazard labeled as shrink to survive, will doom our chances for capturing all this new work. We've been emphasizing these two messages in every venue over the past 2 years. One, that we have the potential to reinvent the Postal Service and become a dominant player in the package and e-commerce delivery business. And two, that the Postal Service's current strategy to dismantle and degrade its last-mile network by eliminating Saturday and door-to-door delivery will destroy this potential. I've delivered these messages at the annual Rutgers University Conference on Postal Services and in other industry gatherings, such as 2020 Postal Vision. I've delivered it to Congress. I've delivered it in print, on cable television, on the radio. Of course, it's easy to tell management, innovate and develop new products and services to provide. But we've sought to contribute our own ideas as well. That's why we initiated the Last Mile Project that we launched last year in 2011 to solicit good ideas for new sources of revenue for the Postal Service. It also prompted us to stage an innovation forum in September of 2011. We did that with the Canadian Union of Postal Workers before the global conference of Uni Post and Logistics, our global union federation, so that we could learn how other countries' post offices are innovating and surviving. We're going to hear from our brothers and sisters from Canada this week about this work. Hundreds of ideas have been generated, and many of them have real potential. Everything from meter reading services for local utilities, electronics recycling, to first mile collections for other delivery companies. Why is the Postal Service removing collection boxes from the streets of America, making it harder for people to use the mail? These idiots should be rebranding the boxes to serve all delivery companies and charging those companies to do the pickups for them. We're also advocating partnerships with office supply and drugstore chains to provide next-day delivery services so that we can tap into the potential for local distribution services. Maximizing our first mile and our last mile strengths can help us secure jobs for our members and give the Postal Service a new lease on life. We're ready to test those ideas And we've proposed to the Postal Service the creation of a Labor Management Innovation Task Force to do so. So far, the leadership of the Postal Service has rebuffed us, opting instead for its shrink-to-survive strategy. But we can't take no for an answer. We will either finally convince them to see that our way is a better way, or we must change the leadership of the Postal Service. Brothers and sisters, we have no other choice if we want to preserve our jobs and our standard of living, plain and simple. The challenge now is to find our place in the 21st century. Connecting the sophisticated digital networks that have emerged over the past 2 decades, like Google and Facebook, etc., with the Postal Service's unique physical distribution networks holds tremendous promise as a business strategy. So does serving as a first and last mile service provider to global logistics companies like UPS and FedEx. We now know that NALC cannot rely on the Postal Service or Congress to explore these possibilities. We must be the driving force with regard to innovation. Nobody has more at stake than the men and women who deliver the mail. We, the people in this room, must summon the courage to lead. Because again, if we don't do it, nobody will. The bottom line is clear. The Postal Service must innovate to survive, but it can't innovate if it dismantles itself. And that's why we have to keep working in Washington and across the country to stop our political enemies from dismantling the Postal Service before we can help reinvent it for the 21st century. At our last convention, a couple months ago, feels like it, our top legislative priorities were clear. To save Saturday delivery by defeating Postal Management's relentless drive to eliminate it, and to enact postal reform legislation that would relieve the Postal Service from the crushing burden to pre-fund future retiree health benefits. Now, thanks to thousands of activists like you, and thousands of other members who are not here, we mounted an unrelenting campaign to save America's Postal Service over the past 2 years. It started at the Anaheim Convention, when 65 buses transported thousands of delegates to Los Angeles to make saving Saturday delivery a core message of the huge jobs rally that was organized by the AFL-CIO. How many were there? It continued with our postcard campaign to recruit more than 5,000 small businesses across America to register their opposition to 5-day delivery. To the Postal Regulatory Commission, that's where we sent them, during their hearing on the 5-day issue. Remember that? Next, we created Save America's Postal Service Coalition and a website with the other postal unions. And we staged joint rallies at more than 500 locations across the country in the district offices of the members of Congress. How many were there? Nah, more than that. That action helped build majority, bipartisan support for the Lynch bill in the House, H.R. 1351, a bill that would resolve the immediate financial crisis at the Postal Service by recovering our massive surplus in the civil service retirement system to cover the cost of pre-funding. Then, in October, we launched a massive petition drive to collect 1 million signatures in support of Saturday delivery. You did that in 2 months, in a 2-month period. And we delivered those signatures to Congress in January 2012. In March and April, we conducted massive teletown hall meetings that attracted more than 50,000 participants. I had to call them all. To stage rallies at Senate field offices, and to generate calls to oppose S 1789, and to support amendments to save Saturday and door delivery, as well as to prevent savage workers' compensation cuts. And in recent months, we've unleashed an unprecedented grassroots and media campaign to stop the House of Representatives from enacting H.R. 2309, the radical downsizing bill sponsored by Representative Darrell Vader, Darth Isa Vader, whatever his name is. A bill that would destroy the Postal Service and attack the collective bargaining rights of postal employees. That campaign revolves around an interactive website called deliveringforamerica.com. Now, this is just a partial accounting of all the activism that NALC has mobilized at the national level. Of course, many of you have initiated your own efforts. Here in Minneapolis, we can take stock in all this activism. On Saturday delivery, the work we did throughout 2010 to mobilize opposition to the Postal Service's plan that was submitted to the PRC paid off. In March 2011, citing evidence presented by NALC during the year-long proceedings, the PRC debunked the savings the Postal Service claimed it could achieve by axing Saturday service. The PRC concluded that the Postal Service overstated its savings by at least 45% because it underestimated the negative impact on revenues from the loss of volume from mailers who value 6-day service. The PRC's negative conclusion and our grassroots drive to recruit thousands of small businesses to support Saturday delivery helped convince the Congress to retain the appropriations language. That language has mandated 6-day delivery for nearly 30 years in the continuing resolutions that funded the government the past 2 years. Unfortunately, in August 2011, after supporting the 6-day language in his first 3 budgets, the President caved into pressure from the Postal Service and called for the elimination of Saturday delivery starting in January of next year. He made that proposal to the Super Committee on Deficit Reduction, which fortunately failed to act, a proposal that also, however, constructively offered $20 billion in short-term relief on pre-funding, and it also gave us new flexibility to raise postal rates. In February 2012, the President included this same misguided 5-day proposal for his proposed budget for fiscal year 2013. But because of the gridlock and the dysfunction in Washington, there's no expectation that Congress will enact a budget for 2013. So NALC will continue to fight for inclusion of the 6-day appropriations language in any CR to fund the government next year. The good news is that the appropriation committees in both houses of Congress have included the 6-day mandate in bills that they have passed this year, so far. In the Senate, our efforts on postal reform really achieved mixed results at best. Although the bill that was adopted, S 1789, pushed back the elimination of Saturday delivery for 2 years, it's otherwise a very bad bill that falls short in addressing the pre-funding burden. It calls for the first pension surplus to finance massive downsizing buyouts to eliminate 100,000 postal jobs. That first pension surplus, our money, should be used to rejuvenate the Postal Service, not to eliminate jobs and dismantle it. We were bitterly disappointed that the Senate bill passed. It did not help that senators wrongly thought that they could stop the plant closings that the Postmaster General had announced for May. And it did not help that the APWU and the other unions supported the bill in order to try to prevent those closings. Nevertheless, our activism, your activism, helped win an amendment to save door-to-door delivery and tens of thousands of carrier jobs. And we mobilized the union to fight even harder when the legislative battle shifted to the House of Representatives. That battle is going on right now. It's way too early to declare victory, but our grassroots and media campaign is making a huge difference. How many of you have seen the NALC TV spots over the past week? That's just the tip of the iceberg. We're running targeted website banner ads and a variety of Google and Facebook search ads that are designed to recruit supporters for our cause among veterans, small businesses, the elderly. Now, after first vowing to pass the ISA bill, in July, the GOP leadership unofficially announced last week that it was giving up until after the election. That's progress. It's a defensive stop, but we won't have a victory until Congress drops H.R. 2309 altogether and goes back to the drawing board. We need a much better bill than S. 1789 or 2309 to save the Postal Service. And we will not give up trying to convince Congress to pass real reform. Now, what I've laid out for you should underline what's at stake in the November election. Control of both houses of Congress hangs in the balance. And while we've been disappointed by President Obama's failure to deliver on postal issues and to make timely appointments to fill Democratic seats on the Board of Governors, nobody in this hall should have any illusion that Mitt Romney would be better for us or other people who work for a living. As we will see on Wednesday and Thursday, Romney has fully embraced the war on the labor movement. His top economic aide has endorsed privatizing the Postal Service without resolving the financial crisis caused by Congress. As the hard-hitting Obama ads make clear, Romney is not the solution, he's the problem. The last thing America needs in the White House is a private equity pirate who has enriched himself and greedy Wall Street investors by robbing companies of their assets and destroying good American jobs through outsourcing and offshoring. For that reason, we need to discuss and act on a presidential endorsement this week. At a time when the Supreme Court has unleashed millionaires and billionaires to buy elections, the labor movement is the only organized force in America who can resist a return of the Bush economic policies that crashed the economy in 2008. We cannot go back to deregulating Wall Street, to embracing corporate free trade and cutting taxes for the rich. It's only going to lead to disaster for the country and for the wages, for the pensions, and health benefits of our members. So it's incumbent upon every leader of the NALC, and that includes everyone in this hall today, to lead and to mobilize our members to elect pro-worker candidates this fall. At this convention, that means each and every one of you should be signed up as the activists, Carrier Corps volunteers, and Give Me 5 level contributors to COLSEP. As we move closer to Election Day, we need everybody to do their part to secure victory. And this week, we're going to talk about how to do that. But first, let me talk about collective bargaining. Our next national agreement is going to be decided in final and binding interest arbitration instead of direct negotiations to reach joint agreement on the terms of our contract. And that's most unfortunate. I won't repeat a blow-by-blow account of the negotiations here. I urge you to read the detailed account in the President's report that's distributed in your convention bag. It's one of the smaller books. Lou. Let me just say that we made a good faith effort to reach a responsible contract, one that recognized the financial condition of the Postal Service and one that rewarded letter carriers for their contributions. We demanded recognition that our jobs have gotten harder. And we were and remain open to innovative ways to reduce health care costs while preserving benefits within the Federal Employees Health Benefit Program. Unfortunately, the Postal Service chose to end the negotiations on January 20th of this year and refused to extend the mediation that followed. So we are preparing for an interest arbitration that begins in a few weeks. The Postal Service has chosen to end 10 years of cooperative labor relations that began after the anthrax attacks in 2001 and then extended through the financial meltdown in 2008. They have chosen the path of confrontation. This same destructive attitude became evident on another area of focus, our drive to improve the JRAP process and our joint efforts to reduce conflict over route adjustments. Management has now told us explicitly that it no longer values a process based on accurate data and joint collaboration like they ever did. A decade of progress has been cast aside. Management has chosen the path of conflict. But let me be clear on this. We will aggressively defend our members' interests in fair route adjustments, and I do mean aggressively. Because we know how to cooperate, but let me tell you something. The NALC knows how to fight. In the months ahead, NALC will vigorously defend our wages and benefits and seek to advance our bargaining goals through the interest arbitration process. Our lawyers and our consultants have been working for months, developing the best witnesses and gathering the most convincing evidence that will advance our positions. As in the past, we're going to need the full support and cooperation of the membership to put on the best case possible. We're going to call on working carriers to be witnesses and advocates for their fellow carriers. Our goal is to achieve the best possible contract for the Postal Service's hardest working employees. But just as importantly, we want to lay the groundwork for the revival of the Postal Service. A smart contract is the first step, but we will need to do a lot more in the years ahead to create a postal service that can thrive in the 21st century. That includes having the vision and the courage to take a hard look at every level of our organization to determine what changes are necessary to ensure that we have the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Whether that includes downsizing, restructuring, or just minor tinkering, we must position ourselves to remain a great union that can protect the rights and interests of our members. At the national, the regional, the state, the branch levels, we must review our structures, our practices, and reassess our priorities in view of the changing realities, which includes the undeniable decline in the size of our bargaining unit. We must have a serious conversation about the future of the NALC. And later today, I'm going to propose that we begin that conversation this week in Minneapolis. I want to give all the delegates a chance to share their thoughts, concerns, and ideas about the future. Our goal is to keep the NALC strong for decades to come. We're going to need the strength of the best organized open shop union in America and its history of solidarity and progress to succeed on the many fronts that we fight for letter carriers. Which leads me back to my opening remarks. I'm not going to start over. Easy. There is turbulence ahead, brothers and sisters. We have no choice but to fly through it, seatbelts fastened. Through the legislative and political battles, through the fight for a new business model, through the interest arbitration, and through the struggles to enforce our contract. But as we fight for our members and a better future for their families on all these fronts, remember to keep your head up and remember the power of a union. Look around you. I'm serious. Look around you. You can see it in the room. You can feel it in the room. You can see what letter carriers like you have built. You have a way to overcome all the fear and uncertainty about the future by fighting for each other every day, because that is our secret weapon. We have each other. We have a strong union. We have 270,000 brothers and sisters committed to helping each other and to building a better workplace and a better country, one family at a time. Let's make this the best convention in the history of the NALC. Let's deliver for a changing world, and let's take care of our own. Thank you, brothers and sisters.